get the new DC Collectibles DC Comics Designer Series Greg Capullo, figure number 13, the Joker. Regarding his accessories, Joker comes with an interchangeable head, he comes with a bang pistol, and he comes with an axe. This is from the new DC Comics Designer Series Greg Capullo line. This is now figure number 13. The side of the box features some outstanding artwork there from Greg Capullo, one of Spot's new favorite artists. And then on the back of the package, we've got the Joker, we've got 0 Year Survival Batman, Wonder Woman, and the Flash. Spot will be looking at all 4 figures in the next series of videos, so stay tuned for those. Down below, the Joker, 0 Year Survival Batman, Wonder Woman, and Flash are all sculpted by Jonathan Matthews. Then on the underside of the package, you can go to www.dccomics.com. You can, of course, head over to DC Comics or comicshoplocator.com if you're looking for DC Comics, Mattel Comics, Marvel Comics, and so much more. That's why Spot shouldn't change what he says. It gets mixed up. But Comic Shop Locator, I've used it frequently, one of which to find the comic book shop that I go to on a regular basis now. That being said, Spot's going to get untongue-tied, and when we come back, we're going to get a better look at the DC Comics Designer Series Greg Capullo, figure number 13, the Joker. There's more heading away, guys. Don't go anywhere. How about we have a look at the accessories first, and then we'll have a look at the Joker. First things first, he comes included with an axe. The axe doesn't really have a lot of paint to it necessarily on the handle, just more of a brown, just a very neutral caramel-colored brown. But they have painted in the blade of the axe a nice metallic silver. Something else that they also went as far to do is sculpt it so it looks like the blade is actually housed inside or over top of the handle itself. Could have just completely sealed that off, but it does give it a little extra oomph. Makes it look like they've taken the time and put care into even the accessories, not so much just the figures. He also comes with, quite like this, his bang pistol. The pistol itself feels fairly secure. I would have, of course, not recommended all bending this because there's only really 2 tabs connecting the bang to the under chamber or under barrel area of the pistol. It's finished on both sides too. A little bit of a paint faux pas down below there, right on the A of the bang. But other than that, no real complaints to be made for the pistol. Pistol has almost an aged look to it, which I quite like as well. And then finally, the last of the accessories, we have a scarred or alternate head Joker. It's not as cleanly finished off as the Joker face here. You can see that there's just some scarring there on the side by his cheek, and more of his hair or scalp is visible here. Entirely up to you which method you'd like to display him with. There's the 2 face sculpts right there. You can see the differences between the 2. I love this one. It just looks gruesome and grotesque. But I think my fallback will be the default head that came included with the figure. I just think it looks so cool. Not to say that this one isn't cool, don't get me wrong, but I think this one here is my favorite of the 2. It's not really all that much different from one another. The mouth is slightly more opened, of course overlooking the scarring on the side there. But the mouth is a little bit open. The eyes are just a little bit more sticking open. Other than that, though, the figure is very similar between the 2 sculpts. Put that right there. Alright, so let's have a look at this Joker figure. Now, I've really been waiting forward to this one for a while now. The Joker just turned out really good. He's got primarily just a black suit on. It's a slight departure from maybe the Clown Prince of Crime, how he appeared before, but I don't mind it actually. His jacket is black. He's got a little handkerchief there in purple, and he's got an almost blue-based gray shirt underneath with tie. Sculpted in as well, the collar or the cuffs of the sleeves protruding from the bottom of his jacket. And it appears that he's got a pair of gloves on, which I guess could be one of my only few nitpicks about it. The gloves come across almost chalky in their appearance. They are also slightly more yellowed than that of his face. They're okay, but again, they come across more like unfinished. It almost comes across like candy. And that's probably a horrible comparison, but it comes across like rock candy that's been sculpted to look like gloves. They come across, I have to admit, a little unfinished, especially this one right here. I wish that was just a little more cleaned up. The rest of the body is very clean, very pristine. Really, the only nitpick I can make were the gloves. Boots are also nice and shiny. The shoes are nice and shiny. Let's have a look at his face. Now, DC Comics does do a ton of designer series figures, as you probably have seen on this channel, as you will soon to see on this channel as Spot continues more and more of these. Some translate from one medium to another a little bit better than others. Some, and you will probably see in the next several videos, because Spot picked up a bunch of figures that he can't wait to talk about, but some figures don't translate well the original source material. Be it a two-dimensional sketch or two-dimensional image translated to a three-dimensional sculpt. Some are more successful than others. And I almost feel like, of the 4 figures in this designer series, Joker might be the best. Why not start with the best first? But the best of the 4 figures. Wonder Woman, I question. And I will talk more about that when we look at the figure. But that might be a good example of how a two-dimensional medium doesn't translate well to a three-dimensional figure. But Joker here excels. Really excels, actually. He comes across slightly translucent, and I know he isn't, but it almost feels and reads to me like his face was a translucent plastic and they painted over top of it. I don't say that for any one reason or another. It just kind of comes across that way to me. He's got red on the interior of his nostrils, which almost give him the sense that his nose is bleeding, but I guess that not be the case. His eyes are sculpted in nicely, as well as the wrinkling around the forehead and brow area of his face. Wrinkles also start forming and developing around the side cheek area, where he has a very predominant Joker smile. There's no denying that this guy is the Joker. The shaved sides of his head and back are a different change to the Clown Prince of Crime, but I think well received, from me at least. There's almost a more splattering to the back of the shaved head, but I think overall everything comes across rather nicely. It doesn't really read realistic, especially areas like the wrinkles are almost painted and washed in a brown to make the wrinkles stand out. It definitely comes across more like it's a comic translated character that's been pulled from the pages and put into plastic form. But I actually quite like it. Looking at this Joker too, when I look at action figures, from time to time I think to myself, you know, if this action figure was in a movie, who would I cast to play this particular character? Joker here, from Greg Capullo, surprisingly enough, you know, if I was to pick an actor based on this design to reinvent or to make this Joker a reality, I would actually pick the guy that was from James Bond. What was the main villain from Spectre? I would probably pick him. He was also in Inglourious Basterds as well. Can't remember off the top of my head the actor's name, but I think he would fit perfectly if this Greg Capullo Joker was translated to movie treatment. Quite really like this Joker, I have to admit. Now, when it comes to his articulation, it's a little bit more limited. So you kind of take the good with the bad. The good is great sculpt. The good is good paint. The bad, slightly less articulation. Let's go through that now. He has a ball joint in the head. That's common. That's fairly easy to come by. But then because he is also a suited character, you don't get a lot of ball joints when it comes to shoulders. Instead, relegated to the form of a swivel in the shoulder instead. He does still have a swivel on the bicep. Does also have a hinge in the elbow. And it still has a rotation in the wrist. I wish he could have done more here. But I mean, even like a sculpt like that, be it for, of course, getting a display stand, because I don't think it's going to properly make him stand. But even like that, he still shows well, even though he doesn't have maybe articulation that you would think is a necessity nowadays. He has a swivel in the waist, fairly easy enough, and swivel back and forth on the legs with a single hinge in the knee. For feet treatment, just a rotation on the shoe, And that's what's going to do it for the figure articulation. I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again when we have a look at future figures, but sometimes artist rendering and character design shows good on paper, but doesn't always translate well to a figure. Joker, on the other hand, I think translated extremely well to figure form, and is probably one of my new favorite Jokers in my collection. Spot picked this up from his comic book store, and if you guys are interested, you just check out your local comic book store. Support. That would be my presidential campaign. Support the local comic book stores. I don't know how well that campaign would go. I don't feel like a lot of people would back me on that, except for collectors. But support your local comic book store, guys. That gives you a chance to go in from time to time and pick up buttes like this guy right here. Today's Toy Spot, we were looking at the DC Comics DC Designer Series. Greg Capullo, I believe this was figure 13, the Joker. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more Toy Spots heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.